Good morning. Today we're taking you inside a story that's shaping the future of technology and global business. Today's story is about a company that impacts everything from your car to your phone, Nexperia. You may not see their name on your devices, but their technology is everywhere, quietly powering the modern world. Based in Nijmegen, Netherlands, Nexperia is a major player in the global semiconductor industry. Their chips are essential building blocks for countless products we rely on every day. These chips are the brains behind modern technology: cars, computers, smartphones, and more. Without them, our digital lives would come to a standstill. Nexperia produces foundational chips in massive quantities, making it vital to many industries. Their ability to deliver at scale keeps factories running and products on shelves. What sets Nexperia apart is its Chinese ownership by Wingtech, despite being rooted in Europe. This cross-continental connection is rare in the semiconductor world. This unique position has placed Nexperia at the center of a heated international debate. Governments and industry leaders are watching closely. Any disruption at Nexperia can send shockwaves through the global supply chain, especially in the automotive sector. The ripple effects can be felt worldwide, from Detroit to Tokyo. Modern cars rely on hundreds of chips, and Nexperia is a leading supplier. Even a brief shortage can halt production lines and delay new models. When Nexperia's production is stable, car factories worldwide keep running. If not, delays and losses follow. The stakes are high for automakers and consumers alike. Nexperia's dual identity, Dutch expertise, Chinese ownership, brings both opportunity and challenge. It's a balancing act between innovation, business, and politics. The company has become a symbol of the complex relationship between global trade, national security, and technological competition. Its story is about more than just chips. It's about who controls the future. Recent events have shown just how fragile this balance can be. A single decision or policy shift can have global consequences. Let's dive into how Nexperia became the epicenter of a global storm, and why the world is watching what happens next. In September 2025, the Dutch government made a stunning and unprecedented move. It took control of Nexperia, one of the country's most important semiconductor companies. The announcement sent immediate ripples through the political and business communities, as few had anticipated such a bold step from the Netherlands. This wasn't a typical business deal, or a quiet negotiation behind closed doors. It was a direct and forceful government intervention, carried out under the rarely invoked Cold War-era Goods Availability Act. The law, designed decades ago for national emergencies, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. The act gave Dutch officials sweeping authority over Nexperia's production and distribution, effectively sidelining its Chinese owner, Wingtech, and placing the company's operations firmly under Dutch control. Such forceful government action is extremely rare in Western Europe and sent shockwaves through the business world. Investors, executives, and analysts scrambled to understand the implications. Companies that relied on Nexperia for critical chips suddenly faced deep uncertainty about their future supply chains. Many began urgently seeking alternative sources, fearing production delays and shortages. The move marked a sharp escalation in economic tensions between the West and China, fueling concerns about a broader trade conflict and the security of global technology supply lines. The Netherlands, long a champion of free trade and open markets, was now prioritizing national security over economic tradition, signaling a major shift in policy. This bold step set the stage for a tense diplomatic standoff with Beijing, as Chinese officials condemned the takeover and demanded explanations. The Dutch government believed it was necessary to protect its national interests, but in doing so, it risked disrupting the already fragile global semiconductor supply chain, with potential consequences for industries worldwide. The world watched closely, with governments and corporations alike wondering how China would respond and what this might mean for the future of international trade. The stakes were high, and the consequences of this decision would ripple far beyond the Netherlands, affecting global markets and international relations. The fallout from this decision would soon be felt worldwide, as the world braced for the next chapter in the ongoing struggle over technology, security, and power. Why did the Dutch government act so decisively? Mounting pressure and security concerns, especially from the United States, played a major role. The US warned that Chinese-owned tech firms could transfer sensitive technology or disrupt supply in a crisis. The pandemic had already exposed the fragility of global supply chains. Dutch leaders feared that, In a geopolitical emergency, China could restrict access to Nexperia's chips, crippling European industries. The ongoing global chip shortage made these fears even more urgent. The government saw preemptive intervention as the only way to guarantee supply and protect national security. Technology is now a strategic asset, not just a commodity. The Dutch aimed to secure chips for Europe while avoiding a total break with China. Their move was a calculated attempt to balance security with economic ties. China's response was swift and forceful. Beijing saw the Dutch takeover as a hostile act and retaliated by blocking all exports from Nexperia. The factory could still produce chips, but none could leave the Netherlands. This move turned the Dutch intervention against itself, halting the flow of semiconductors worldwide. The global economy, especially the automotive sector, felt the impact immediately. China's export bloc was a strategic show of economic power, pressuring the Dutch and their allies. The standoff escalated, with Nexperia's products trapped in limbo. Beijing demanded the Dutch reverse their decision, refusing to back down. The dispute over one factory had become a full-blown trade crisis. China's message was clear. Actions against its interests would have serious consequences. The world braced for a prolonged and damaging conflict. China's export bloc made a bad chip shortage much worse. Car and electronics manufacturers, already struggling, now faced a critical supply gap. The automotive industry was hit hardest. Factories shut down, production stalled, and financial losses mounted. The crisis at Nexperia threatened jobs and economic stability across Europe. Used car prices soared, and consumers faced long waits for new vehicles and electronics. The ripple effects highlighted how interconnected the global economy is. A dispute in the Netherlands was causing pain worldwide. Political leaders faced mounting pressure to resolve the crisis. The chip shortage became a wake-up call for more resilient supply chains. In the short term, the priority was clear: end the standoff and get chips moving again. The world saw firsthand how geopolitical rivalry could disrupt everyday life. The urgency for a solution had never been greater. As the crisis deepened, both sides realized they needed a solution. Diplomatic talks began in early November 2025, aiming to de-escalate the standoff. The Netherlands wanted secure chip supplies. China wanted its company's autonomy restored. Negotiators searched for common ground. A breakthrough came when China signaled it would allow chip exports, even under Dutch oversight. This shift was a turning point, showing China also felt the economic pain. The Dutch saw this as goodwill and reconsidered their position. The talks proved that even adversaries could find pragmatic solutions. Both sides recognized that a prolonged conflict would be mutually destructive. The path to de-escalation was now open. Relief was in sight for industries worldwide. On November 19, 2025, the Dutch government made a significant announcement. It was suspending its intervention at Nexperia, a move that sent ripples through the international community and global markets. Economy Minister Vincent Caramans addressed the press, crediting recent progress in diplomatic talks with China for making the suspension possible. He highlighted the importance of open communication and mutual understanding in reaching this point. Caramans described China's willingness to resume exports as a constructive and encouraging step forward, but he was careful to emphasize that the suspension was not a permanent solution, and that ongoing vigilance would be required. The Dutch government framed their move as both a diplomatic success and a gesture of goodwill, hoping to set a positive tone for future negotiations. Meanwhile, China's Commerce Ministry welcomed the Dutch decision, but insisted that more steps were needed to fully restore trust, and pointed to the Dutch actions as the source of the initial disruption and chaos. The European Union also expressed relief at the news, stating that the move would help stabilize critical supply chains across Europe and beyond, and reduce uncertainty for businesses. The EU stressed the importance of continued engagement and dialogue with China, emphasizing that collaboration was essential for long-term stability. All sides tried to present the outcome in a positive light, but beneath the surface, underlying tensions and mistrust remained unresolved. The immediate crisis had been averted, but the relationship between the countries was still fragile, and the risk of future conflict lingered. Ongoing dialogue and careful diplomacy would be essential to prevent future disruptions and to build a more resilient framework for cooperation. The world exhaled in relief, but the lesson was clear. Trust and cooperation are fragile commodities in today's interconnected, tech-driven world and must be carefully protected by all sides. Europe's car makers breathed a sigh of relief as Nexperia's chips were set to flow again. The export bloc had forced production cuts and financial strain across the industry. The announcement brought hope that assembly lines could return to normal. Stock markets reacted with cautious optimism, though broader challenges remained. The crisis forced automakers to rethink their supply chains and reduce reliance on single suppliers. Many are now investing in local chip production and diversifying sources. The immediate impact backlogs will clear, and stability will return to car markets. The long-term lesson resilience and flexibility are now top priorities. The Nexperia episode was a wake-up call for the entire industry. For now, relief prevails, but the drive for supply chain security is just beginning. The Nexperia saga is more than a business story. It's a lesson for our times. It shows how technology, trade, and security are now inseparable. A single chip factory can trigger a global crisis, affecting economies everywhere. The world's reliance on fragile supply chains is under new scrutiny. National security is increasingly prioritized over free market ideals. Semiconductors are the new strategic resource, and control over them is fiercely contested. Europe finds itself balancing between US and Chinese interests. The crisis was resolved through diplomacy, proving that dialogue can avert disaster. But the risks of over-reliance and geopolitical tension remain. The path forward: build resilient supply chains, diversify technology sources, and keep communication open. The Nexperia case is both a warning and a guide for the future. In a connected world, cooperation, even among rivals, is essential for stability and prosperity.